Week 5 is here, and so are we. Welcome, everybody, to episode 5 of the DFS Dudes. Mike, real quick, I just realized that. Does that sound a bit better, Jake?
Of course. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Well, this is the podcast where we're giving you all your daily fantasy football advice. We are your host, Sam Corcoran, Jake Hart. Julian is MIA at the moment. Hopefully he'll join us. We'll have to see what happens. But anyways, Jake, I guess it's us two. How you doing for now?
I'm doing good. I liked how last week went. It was we saw a lot of guys who had been struggling, like Eckler, Jettis, finally break through, and did well for my lineups. Honestly, my main lineup that I presented on the show, which I didn't mean for it to be heavy contrarian, but it was, and it worked out. Damian Harris at 1%, Logan Thomas at less than 1%, and then obviously we had Hawk. I had him everywhere, and that was a huge blow up. And then Russ getting 27 at 4%, and DA, Sutton, and Judy all got their points, which came through big for me. So
yeah, I mean, I didn't really have anyone that made that much money. It was kind of a slow week for me. The Diggs Allen stack was okay, and that kind of blew me off because I wasn't able to spend that much money, and I went a ton of low end guys that didn't really do too well, didn't perform as I hoped, so I did not profit. I'm down a bit now, so I'm hoping to come back this week 5 of the NFL season, and let's just jump right into it with quarterback. Jake, I'll let you start off. Who do you have at quarterback this week? What are some names that you like?
Yeah, there's 3 guys that I'm really looking at a lot, and none of them are super expensive as we've seen in the past. First one, I like Brady, 6K. Going up against Atlanta, you're finally
it's the divorce game.
If Godwin's active, I think it's just you're going up against such a good matchup. It's a good bounce back week. He's got to be frustrated after that Chiefs game. I think you're going to see him throw 3 or 4 touchdowns.
I think he's frustrated about another thing, Jake.
Oh, the divorce or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's the divorce game. He's going to go out with a vengeance. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know how much I'll play into that.
A finger injury. Yeah, right.
And the stacks aren't too expensive with Evans at 6.9 and Godwin only at 5.9. And even if you want to go Brait, I know he's not practicing, but if he plays, he got 5 or 6. I think he got 8 targets last week. So you could see him ending up in the end zone for cheap. But first one I like is Brady. Second one is actually the quarterback that I'm using in the lineup. Trevor Lawrence, 5.6K. Going up against Houston. Again, really cheap stack options with Zay Jones at 4.1 and Christian Kirk at 6.6. I really like those guys, and I think that if he throws 3 touchdowns, you're looking at a really cheap lineup that can access some of the bigger receivers like a Cup or a Debo, or if you want to go the running back route, like a CMC or Dalvin.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you with both of those. I went with the Tom Brady Godwin stack. I think 6K for Brady is, I mean, he is listed as questionable. We'll see if he plays, but it's Tom Brady. He should play. I like that going up against Atlanta, Jake. I think that Atlanta is going to be focused more on Evans than Godwin. Godwin's coming back. You're going to have Terrell and Mike Evans. So Godwin's going to be open a lot. I think he's going to be targeted a lot. And for 5.9K for one of the best receivers in football when healthy is an absolute steal right there. So I'm going with the Brady Godwin stack. If you do need a cheap option, I absolutely like the Lawrence and Zay Jones stack. Zay Jones did not play last week at 4.1K. He's been pretty solid for the Jaguars so far.
Well, and you saw the guy who filled in with him, Jamal Agnew. He was playing exactly Zay Jones' position, and he caught 2 touchdowns last week. So I think that's a boost for Zay's value, even though he wasn't on the field. I think they're going to be looking that way in those progressions. And then the last one that I wanted to mention, Andy Dalton, 5.2K. Seattle's defense is awful, just god awful. I mean, Jared Goff picked them apart with just TJ Hawkinson last week. So I think if Jameis is out, obviously if Jameis is in, then it's Jameis. But either one of those guys, they're both below 6K. I think you can pair them with Olave, and they're going to have a really solid week pretty much no matter what, just because of how bad Seattle is.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you on the Andy Dalton stack. Where's he priced at again? He is 5.2. 5.2. Okay. So Andy Dalton at 5.2. I think I as much as I agree with that, I think you can go up. It's only $400 more to go a Lawrence stack and then get a cheap receiver with Zay Jones. So I would probably stick with those two stacks personally, just because I think you can get more value off of that. I know the Seahawks defense is terrible, but I think Trevor Lawrence is a more proven quarterback. Obviously, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. So I'd rather go with those two stacks. I think it really depends on where you're at with your budget, though. I do feel like if you have a little bit of budget left in you, you can go with Tom Brady and Chris Godwin. That's my move. If you don't, go Trevor Lawrence, Zay Jones. You can even go Zay Jones down in the stack right there. That could work out as well.
Yeah. I definitely, those are the only quarterbacks that I'm really looking into this week. I think Allen and Hurts and Kyler are all going to be super high owned for.
They are.
I think that Eagles Cardinals game is just, it's too overhyped. And I think the Cardinals offense is really slow and both offenses like to run the ball. I think that game is not going to be the shootout that everyone thinks it is. And it's going to be super high owned. So I'd rather just get away from it. And then Pittsburgh, Buffalo, there's players that I like more than Allen. Allen at 8,200 is just, it's too much for me. Price that high above a guy like Brady is just, that seems crazy. So I'm going to be sticking with some of the lower guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you gotta go a bit low this week. The Eagles Cardinals game, yeah, I think that will be a shootout, but that's also a lot of money. And I mean, I went with the Allen Diggs stack last week. That really did not work out for me at all. So I think I'm going to switch my strategy a bit, go low on quarterback, have a low end stack somewhat. And let's move on to running back at this point. I think running back's a bit interesting. I think there are some high end guys that I want to go with. There are some low end guys. There's one low end guy I want to go with as well. So I'll start with the low end guy. Listed at 5,600. Damian Harris going up against the Lions, whose run D has looked very poor this year. I know he's in the committee with Ramondre, but I've liked what I've seen out of Harris. He seems to be still the RB1. He's getting the most carries. He's getting the red zone carries as well, from what I've seen. I know he got a touchdown last week in the red zone, so that was promising. So I'm gonna have him in my lineup at 5,600. Saves a lot of money there. Now for the big boy, I'll actually let Jake talk because I just got a cough real quick. I'm a bit sick, so I just want to. I've been holding it in, and it's getting uncomfortable.
Okay, all good. Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the Damian Harris play. I have a lot of him at 5.6K, and I was kind of surprised last week. I said he was only 1.1% owned, and
yeah, that was surprising.
I mean, with just how that bad Packers run D and with Mac Jones being out, kind of surprised me, and so I do think he's going to be higher owned, up in the 10-12% this week, just because a lot of casual players will see that 30-second run D tag and want to play all of him. So, I mean, to get away from that, also playing Ramondre Stevenson is not a bad call. He had 14 rushing attempts last week with 4 catches for the second straight week. So if he gets into the end zone, he's a really solid, close to 20-point play.
And he had more receptions than Damian Harris, I will say. Damian Harris, I believe, I have to check the snap counts, who's on the field more. But Damian Harris is getting more of the carries, and Ramondre got more of the receptions.
Yeah, so and it's not by much. I think the real thing that makes Damian more valuable for me is the red zone touches, as you spoke to. And then talking about other cheap guys, the only other guys below 6K I was looking at, Jeff Wilson Jr. at 5.5. It's gotten to the point where with the Niners, I don't really care about the matchup just because I know Carolina's run D is pretty good. And that game's going to be super slow paced with how much both those teams like to run the ball. But Jeff Wilson at 5.5 is way too attractive in a game where I could see the Niners in and around the red zone a lot. And if he hops into the end zone, he's immediately cashing on that value. Along with that, Breece Hall, 5.4K. He's got, I think, a matchup that's in the red in terms of the opposition rank.
Yeah, Miami's the 6th ranked run D.
And I mean, 6th ranked run D through 4 weeks. And so it's just like, it depends a lot on who you're playing. And Miami has been in a lot of shootouts where the other team can't run the ball late in the game. So I think you have to take that into context, because with those bad matchups on the DraftKings thing, that's going to get a lot of the consensus away from Breece Hall. So I guarantee he's going to be less than 5% owned just because of that tag and the questionable tag. So I could see if that 17 carry game continues, he could be really valuable going forward. And I have him in my in our regular fantasy league, and I'm really excited to play him pretty much every week from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I actually really like your Jeff Wilson pick because I think this is a game where the Niners defense is going to hold Carolina. I don't see how Carolina is going to do much against this 49ers defense, who have given up, I believe, the least amount of points this season, if I'm correct. I need to double check that. But at 5.5K, you're going to be running the ball a lot to probably wind down the clock. Jimmy didn't throw to him a lot, but he is the workhorse. He has been the workhorse running back for this 49ers team. We haven't seen a lot of Ty Davis Price. Jordan Mason, we haven't seen much of. Marlon Mack, we haven't seen much of. So it's really been Jeff Wilson Jr. I really like that play a lot. The other guy I want to go with, high-end guy, really high-end guy, I should say, at, where is it? At 8K, Nick Chubb going up against the Chargers defense. The run defense for the Chargers has been atrocious this year. Nick Chubb has been on a hot streak recently. He's been the guy in Cleveland that they've been starting to shy away a little bit from Kareem Hunt, for what it seems like. In 4 games, he has 81 attempts, 115 yards per game on average, and 5 touchdowns. He hasn't been much involved in the receiving game, but you're starting to see him get a lot more carries in the red zone than before. Now you're going up against this Chargers run D for a team that does not. It is mainly a run. It's a run heavy offense in Cleveland. I like Nick Chubb at 8K this week. It's very high. It's very pricey. But if you want to go chalk, if you want to go up high, I think Nick Chubb could be a solid play.
I have to disagree. I don't think that I'm going to be playing a lot of Nick Chubb this week just because he's priced up so high and he's going to be so high owned that the odds that he really cashes on the probably 30-point week that he'd need for you to hit that money in the Millie Maker is just, they aren't that high. Just with his game, he would probably need 3 touchdowns or somehow to get 3 or 4 catches, which I don't really see. So in a game where especially I think they're going to be down because the Chargers offense is good, I don't know how much you can rely on him being in and around the red zone enough or them running the ball enough for him to get that crazy 30-point week that he had against the Jets.
That is fair. I think looking at it's definitely a risky play. It's high risk, high reward. I think if you want to go high end, you have the money. I'd say go Nick Chubb. Right now I'm with Damian Harris, and then I'm in between Jeff Wilson and Nick Chubb. I got to see how my receivers shape out. Want to see what the deal with tight end is. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And if I'm going high, there's 2 guys that I'm really looking at. I think Dalvin Cook, 7.3. They're playing the Bears. I think this game is going to be over by the second
I was
quarter.
going to say that.
And they're just going to start giving the ball to Dalvin. They've shown that they're willing to give him 20 carries. And if he can get into the end zone once or twice, I think he's going to be a really solid play. And he is below that super top tier at 7.3K. And then right below that, Leonard Fournette, 6.9. I want all of that Bucs offense, especially if that game is going to be a blowout. I think Fournette will get the carries. He's shown that he's a part of the passing game. They're trying to get the ball to him. And if he didn't get vultured by Rachaad White right in the red zone last week, he would have had 2 touchdowns, including one in the air. And so at 6.9K, again, he's really attractive to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do like Dalvin Cook as well. That was another name I wanted to talk about a little bit. He has been struggling this year to start the year off, so that's a bit of an issue. But I think the Bears could be a perfect comeback game for him.
Yeah, and the last guys that I want to talk about with the running backs are a lot of the middle-priced guys. I think Singletary, Pierce, and James Robinson, taking your shot on any one of them just for game script purposes. I think they're all 6.1, 6.2, 6.3K. I think they all have really good matchups. Watch for them to be around 10% owned, though, because of that. And any one of them could get in for 2 touchdowns. I think Singletary has built himself a nice little floor with that usage in the passing game now and a great Buffalo offense. So, and I mean, I want all of the Jags-Texans game. I hate to call my shot on a game like the Seahawks-Lions last week, but that really seems like what it's going to be. And So I mean, I'm fine playing them in basically any lineup. Even if I have Lawrence, I'm fine playing Robinson. It's probably more of a cash game play, but that is something that interests me. And I really don't think you can go wrong unless you're going high end running back, because I don't see that this week.
Absolutely. Let's move on to receivers. I think there's a lot more high end guys here. So we talked about Chris Godwin already, stacking him with Tom Brady. That's going to be one of my guys this week. Next up, we talked about that Eagles Cardinals games. Let's add AJ Brown at 7,500 to that lineup. I think this could be a big game. I mean, the Eagles are 4-0. This could be a big game on offense for AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts. Would I stack? Not necessarily, considering how pricey Jalen Hurts is and how pricey that stack is. But I have enough money to get AJ Brown on my squad, so I'm gonna take him in this scenario. Christian Kirk, another good option. We talked about him. You could go Zay Jones as well. Right now it appears that I'm going to. He didn't only got. I mean, he was targeted 9 times last week, 2 receptions. So not the best stat line. But
That game was a rainstorm, though. You got to remember
it
that.
was, yes, exactly. So I think you can add Christian Kirk to this lineup. And yeah, those are the 3 right now. I'm going to keep looking for another one because I have some other guys in mind as well. I have a lot, but Jake, who do you have?
The guys that I like, again, I'm doing a super game stack with guys like Christian Kirk and Brandon Cooks, and I don't hate Zay Jones. I'm going to confirm that he's healthy before I stick him in my lineup. But I do like Cooks and Kirk, the big target hogs, in a game that I keep saying, I think it's going to be super high scoring. And then Chris Olave is someone who I really like. Bad Seattle defense and a guy who just gets all the air yards. He is basically the number 1 target in this offense, especially if Kamara and Michael Thomas are still questionable. I really like Chris Olave this week. And then again, if you're going the Brady stack, I think Evans, Godwin, Drake London, even running it back, I think you can't really go wrong with any of them just because they're not priced too high. And then the last few guys, if you really want to get low, Zay Jones, we talked about at 4.1, and then DJ Moore at 5.2. I think he is that receiving game. And so if Baker figures it out for even one drive, you could see him get like 5 or 6 catches and a touchdown in this game. I mean, he got 11 targets last week. And so you're really just at 5.2, you're paying for a number 1 receiver, and you're just hoping at this point. And the last 2, I have in my main lineup have Cooper Kupp at 9.6. I understand how expensive he is, but he's a different animal. He is that offense, and I really want that security. And if you have the money, I say go for it. I don't see how you get another guy like a Cooper Kupp, where, I mean, he had 14 targets or 14 catches last week, and he still was considered somewhat of a meh fantasy week. So I think if you see him get in for a touchdown or 2, that's just not a surprise. And those kind of guys are rare.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the Brandon Cooks pick a lot. I want to talk about that DJ Moore pick because I do disagree with that. And maybe this is my Niners bias getting to me, but I just don't see how the Panthers offense is going to get by that 49ers defense. I really don't. It's like the 49ers defense has given up 19 to the Bears, and that was a game where they beat themselves in. It wasn't really the Niners. I mean, it was more like penalties kept the drives going. Defense got tired. Then they gave up 7 to the Seahawks, 11 to the Broncos, 9 to the Rams. It's been brutal for offensives going up against the Niners, and I just don't see how the Panthers are going to really do with that too much. If you want another low-end guy, think about, in my opinion, taking one of the Jets receivers. Garrett Wilson at 5.2, Elijah Moore at 5, Corey Davis at 5.1. I think it's tough. I don't know which one to take. I think I'm leaning Elijah Moore at this point. Either Elijah Moore or Corey Davis. Corey Davis got the majority of the targets last week with Zach Wilson back. But going up against the Miami Dolphins, they're gonna be playing from behind. They're gonna have to throw the ball a lot. The Miami secondary is solid. It's not the best. It's really Miami's a very offensive minded team. I think the Jets receivers could have a very good week going up against the Miami Dolphins. It's so tough though, Jake, because there's 3 guys all around the same price, and you got to pick one of them. And that's the issue. You really just got to test your luck.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate any of those plays. I think if you wanted to stack Zach Wilson, then I'm in on that. I don't really know. I don't have enough faith in any individual one or that Jets offense being able to operate outside of Brees Hall, who I already talked about. I think he could get involved in the passing game a good amount when they're down. So I don't really I mean I don't see Zach Wilson throwing for more than like 250 passing yards. And if that's going to happen, you're talking about Conklin's probably getting 50, Garrett Wilson's probably getting 50, like the other guys are getting 50, and then it's like no one guy is going to have that 150 receiving yards with 10 catches and something. Where I mean, even when you're talking about these games that the Niners defense played against these receivers, I mean, Cortland Sutton had 8 catches for 97 yards on 10 targets. You saw, obviously, we talked about the Cooper Kupp game where, and I'm not saying DJ Moore is going to have 14 catches on 19 targets, but even Tyler Higbee had 10 on 14. So I think there is, I mean, everyone, like the Panthers still get the ball and they're going to have to run plays and they're probably going to be down. And so I think that if you're paying for a guy with DJ Moore's talent, he could take one random to the house. And so at only 5.2K, that's all I meant in terms of me being excited.
Fair enough. I can definitely see that point. I think there are some other guys that are a bit cheaper than him, or you can go up a little bit. Yeah, at this point, I really do want to have a Jets receiver. It's just tough. I'm gonna have to figure that out. Another good option, I will say though, looking at the list, what about Chris Olave at 5.7?
Yeah, no, I talked about Chris
you
Olave.
did talk about him. Yes, that's another guy I really like for this week.
Yeah, I mean, he bad Seattle defense, and no matter who's throwing to him, it seems like he's the alpha. And so I think he's gonna be. I mean, if he gets in the end zone once or twice, I mean, you're immediately paid off at only 5.7. I think even pairing him in like some sort of Seahawks Saints game stack, I don't hate. I just that Saints defense is pretty good. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know how much I believe in Geno so far. After I had to issue the apology in the DFS Dudes chat after I shut down Geno Smith being our consensus.
Yeah, if you guys missed it last week, Julian was preaching for Geno Smith. He's like, get Geno Smith in all your lineups. And Jake and I were both. I disagreed. Jake disagreed heavily, and Jake was all over that. Jake was like, "What on earth are you talking about?"
It's always these gross plays that pay off, and it's just,
hey, maybe that's why Julian's not here. He's in protest of your decision. He's like, you screwed the viewers over, so I'm leaving. But anyways, let's move on to tight end. I mean, I do kind of want to go high. First of all, I don't get why George Kittle is the highest priced tight end this week. He has not been getting any targets. I mean, he's been basically used like an offensive lineman. So I would not go high at tight end with Kim. I think you could go with a guy like TJ Hawkinson, though. Going up against the Patriots, I think this is going to be a close game. And I think Jared Goff last week targeted Hawkinson a lot. You kind of saw him break out. I think Hawkinson against New England, I think he can step it up once again at 4,900. I think that's a very solid price for a guy like Hawk.
I think my scary thing with him at tight end, he was 15% owned last week. So this week, I think you could see him, especially with, I mean, he's the second highest priced tight end at 4,900. I think you could see him creep above 30% ownership. And I am just going to fade the whole thing. I like the Pats defense. I don't want Goff. I don't want Hawk. I'm just, other people can deal with that. If I want a high guy, my two are Zach Ertz and Kyle Pitts. Zach Ertz is leading the NFL right now in red zone targets with 10 through 4 weeks, which is pretty crazy, and only 2 touchdowns. So
that is true.
If that game ends up being something, which again, I said I'm probably not going to end up investing a lot in, just because
I just noticed I thought I had some Cardinals guys on my team. I don't. And now that makes me want to get Zach Ertz on this squad.
Yeah, and then the other one being Kyle Pitts. I just think he's going to be so low owned.
He is.
Maybe not though. I mean, the opponent rank tag of 29th makes it tough, but I mean, you got to keep calling your shot on Kyle Pitts until he shows that he has a Kyle Pitts game, because it's going to happen. It's like the Hawkinson. He's so talented, and there's just not a lot of other stuff going on that offense. And so it's tough. It's gross, but at some point Pitts is going to break out. And I want to have him on my roster for that. It's the same thing we said about Jacobs before last week. It's the same thing we said about Henry for the past 2 weeks. Those guys just don't exist a lot. And those big games you want to have in your lineup, especially when everyone thinks it's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pitts is a solid option. I mean, you really got to see he has not done much this year, and I think that's based on coaching. But overall, I mean, I think it's a pretty. I mean, I guess it's a solid play. I think Ertz is the best play this week. Now that I think of it, I said T.J. Hawkinson. He is going to be high owned. I would say T.J. Hawkinson is a very close number 2 to Zach Ertz. I wanted to have some Cardinal stock, on my team. I have a little bit of Eagle stock with A.J. Brown. Now going back the other way with Zach Ertz. If it's going to be a blowout, I think that's the move to have right there.
Yeah, and if I'm going low tight end, there's 2 guys that I'm looking at. The first one, Logan Thomas. I've had him in my lineup basically every week, and because he's so low priced that I can just like last week, I was perfectly fine with having 7 points. He had 5 catches from 19 yards, which is just disgusting and weird, and Carson Wentz sucks. But there is something important that I was looking at, and I didn't have the balls to do it. But Carson Wentz in good fantasy matchups has had above 30 points in both of them, against Jacksonville and Detroit, and against bad has had less than 10. And now we're going up against Tennessee, which is a good fantasy matchup. So I'm hedging that with Logan Thomas. I'm not fully going in on the I played around with the Wentz and McLaurin and Thomas stack, but I couldn't pull the trigger. But that's something to consider, because that offense has shown that they're willing to pass a lot in those games where they need to score and where they're down and where there's a bad defense. It came to fruition in weeks 1 and 2, and potentially again this week. And I do think it's going to be super low owned because of that. So look out for that. And the other guy, Dalton Schultz, he's going to be probably less than 1% owned. He's been hurt, and he's finally back, hopefully, to what he was. He's going up against the first-ranked defense against tight ends. So I don't think he's going to be in any lineups, but he is an integral part of this offense. He played, I think, 2 less snaps than CeeDee Lamb last week. So, I mean, he's a guy who's going to be on the field, and if he's healthy, then he'll run some more routes and he'll get the ball. So you got to have faith in a guy. Not a lot of tight ends can put up a 9 target, 7 catch at only 3,400 salary, which is what Dalton Schultz did the last time he was healthy with for the whole game with in week 1.
Exactly. Yeah. I think Dalton Schultz could be a very solid play. I like the Logan Thomas play. It's basically how Julian is. It's the same relationship that Julian has with Josh Jacobs, I feel like.
I'm waiting for Logan Thomas's 2 touchdowns a week. I want to be here for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're waiting for it. I think that's a solid play. I think they're going up against the who are they going up against again? They're going up against Tennessee. That's not the best team on defense, so I think that could very much work out. 100%. Let's talk about defense real quick. Where my lineup stands right now, I have 2,900. So I could go up to Patriots D. I could also go down a bit. I'm going to go down 1 spot, and I'm going to take the Lions D, I think, this week. Going Bailey Zappi, going back at it. Jacoby Myers, I don't know what his status is. Is he back this week?
Jacoby Myers,
he is questionable. So
I don't really care.
It doesn't really matter too much. I think I'm going to go the Lions D at 2,800 against the Patriots offense, which if you know me, if you've been following my Twitter feed, if you've been listening to my show on Z89 WJPZ, you know that I hate the Patriots offense. So I'm going to take the Lions defense. It's that simple.
Yeah. I found myself kind of playing around. Like there's the defense that I like the most is the Titans. I've just been basically just auto starting anyone against the Commanders just because their offensive line is made of paper. Um, but if you want a cheaper option than 3K, I do like the Cowboys and Seahawks at 2.5 going up against the Saints. The Seahawks, I mean, you never know. Like, especially if Michael Thomas and Jameis Winston and Alvin Kamara are out again. I think you could see them throw some picks and have something crazy happen. For the Cowboys, again, bad offensive line. The Rams got sacked a ton by the Niners last week, and the Cowboys have a very good pass rush. So I would get excited about that. And then obviously I always mention the bottom defense. 2.1K, the Cardinals. Just
Yeah,
what if they get a pick? What if they get
exactly.
a six? Like it's a crapshoot. We say this every week, but I just it does not matter too much on defense. You don't see for the Millie Maker, you don't necessarily like see a lot of the chalky plays end up winning. So it's kind of a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I mean, you could go low. I mean, that's a rough game to go low on, but at the same time, like it's panned out for us a lot. So I think we're solid for that. Yeah, I think defense. Yeah, I mean, defense is always a crapshoot. So go with whatever. It really depends on your budget. I have enough budget to go Lions at 2,800, so that's what I'm going to stick with this week. But
yeah, and if you if you're really excited about one defense, which the one defense obviously everyone's going to be super excited about, and I think they're going to be probably 15-20% on the Bills defense. You're talking
yeah,
about probably one of the best defenses going up against a quarterback in his first start. So, I mean, you're paying the price 4,100, but I think you're going to be looking at probably a guaranteed 10-point game. So you really just how much do you value that extra 2,000 in your lineup? You know, it's all about it comes down to strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree with you on that. But anyways, let's move on to the consensus lineup. And I'm trying to fix my DraftKings right now because something is acting up. Hopefully this loads. Come on. There we go. Perfect. All right. It was like I guess my location turned off and they just had to see if I was all good with that. But anyways, let's go to the consensus lineup. So if I can get this load, I don't know why this is not loading right now. This has been really annoying. Give me 1 minute. I have to just get this thing to load. Sorry about that.
Well, I can start talking.
Yeah,
about it.
Yeah, Jake. Why don't you start this off?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking through, and the quarterbacks again. I think I'm okay if you want to go. Really, Lawrence, Brady, and even Wentz. I think I would be okay with that. I know. I'm leaning into the grossness this week, and
yeah,
I think it could turn out. I mean, you're talking about the 29th ranked against quarterback fantasy defense. So I mean, I'm okay with going any of them. I think Brady is probably going to be a little higher owned, so I would lean away from that.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm fine with any of them. And I don't.
Yeah.
Brady's status seems up in the air. Right finger, right shoulder. You saw him get a little banged up. He took a sack or got knocked down or something in that Chiefs game. And he was, I mean, they talked about it on air if you were watching that. He kept touching his shoulder. He kept throwing it around. Blaine Gabbert was warming up on the sideline at one point. So it makes me question how healthy he'll be. And if they get up early, will they just run the ball with Fournette like they've shown the willingness to? Like 30 times, where a guy like Lawrence, a guy like Wentz, I think they're going to be passing the ball. I think you're going to see them get 300 passing yards for sure.
Yeah, I think for me it's between Brady or Lawrence. I think I have Brady. Lawrence I would absolutely consider owning. So I say why don't for the consensus? You seem a lot. I mean, I'm definitely a little bit higher on Brady. You seem a lot higher on Lawrence. So why don't we go with Trevor Lawrence? I think that's the best move right there.
At running back, why don't
So wait,
you?
hold on. Let me share my screen real quick,
Okay.
and add Trevor Lawrence to this lineup. Um, there we go. Perfect. Present, share screen. Sorry, this is taking. DraftKings is being really not so cooperative today. So there we go. All right, Trevor Lawrence at quarterback, running back. We both agreed on Damian Harris. We both agreed on Jeff Wilson. Do you want to do both of those guys, Jake?
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that. Those are my two running backs in
Those are my
my
two running backs as well. So we made it very easy. So let's
No,
just stick with that and let's move on to
no need
wide
to
receiver.
overthink it.
Exactly. So we should have a Jags guy in there. I think Christian Kirk or Zay Jones is fine.
I think Christian Kirk is the number one. I think
Christian Kirk has been the number one. I think I would stick with him. On the Zay Jones, and I would be more than happy to do that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think if we're gonna go that game, I think we gotta go Brandon Cooks. But
You want? I'm cool with Cooks. How about we also? I want to also get some Eagles Cardinals stocks. So what about AJ Brown? Are you okay with that at 7,500 high end guy?
I'm fine with AJ Brown.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well,
this is a pretty easy consensus lineup for us so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Cardinals Eagles game, I think the Eagles defense is a lot better than people think. So
It is.
That game scares me as like a potential. And then the Eagles offense loves to run the ball in the red zone. So I do think that the Cardinals defense is very bad, and AJ Brown could break out just because of how dynamic he is. But once they get into the red zone, them throwing the ball is not super common.
Yeah, I still think it's a good play to play AJ Brown in the game. That could be an offensive shootout. I know the Eagles D has been good, but hey, you never know. Some defenses have been very good, and then they play a really good offense, a high-powered offense. I mean, the one example that comes to mind was that 49ers Saints game back in 2019. Two stellar defenses, two stellar offenses. It ended up being like 48, 46 49ers.
Yeah. I think if we play that, then I think we go Zach Ertz at tight end.
I was gonna say I had Zach Ertz as my tight end as well. So
almost like a little double game stack where if both those games hit the over, then we're looking good all of a sudden.
Exactly. What about another wide receiver? I know you're not high on the Jets guys, but I'll talk about my guy later. I'm assuming that you don't want to go any Jets guys. I have one guy in mind. If you want to hear that.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was looking at some of the box scores and for the Dolphins defense, and one thing I noticed is typically the guy who has been doing well against this defense, there's usually been one guy, and it has been someone who typically is in the slot or is a tight end. And with that in mind, I'm not saying go. I know Braxton Berrios gets a lot of snaps at slot, but I think another guy against the Bengals, it was T. Higgins that went off. So one guy who does play his position, and I think I'm gonna go to this guy because he can kind of play all over the field, is Garrett Wilson at 5,200. I think that's a really solid play for this week. He was this Elijah Moore got most of the targets last week. Garrett Wilson was one reception under him. I think I would go Garrett Wilson at 5,200 for my flex this week.
Yeah, and I'm looking it up right now, but I think that the thing that scares me about that is that Garrett Wilson's snap counts are still a lot less than like Elijah Moore had 90% snaps and Garrett Wilson only had 77 and Corey Davis at 74. I mean, not to say that Garrett Wilson couldn't have a big game, but that somewhat scares me. I would prefer Elijah Moore, but I'm fine with Garrett Wilson. And then trying to think. I mean, yeah, put Garrett Wilson in.
Okay.
We'll look at defense and then see what we can make it with.
Yeah, and 31. This is basically identical to my lineup besides quarterback for what it's worth. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, I had Chris Godwin in instead of Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, I have Cooks, Kirk, Wilson, Harris, Lawrence. So
yeah, I was gonna say I will say though, if you do, I think Godwin is the better stack option because I think you can get Brandon Cooks for only 200 more, and I think that could be a better option than Chris Godwin. going against that Jacksonville defense. But for a stack, if you're going Brady, you have to go Godwin.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say. Defense. We could go Chargers, Titans. Titans D is that really.
That's the defense. If I have enough for the Titans D, I've been
We
going.
do have enough for the Titans defense if you want to take that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could go Titans defense and Garrett Wilson. I would be fine with a not Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and then we could even get to like the Bills defense.
Yeah, even like the Niners or something like that.
Yeah, and then again, like I like Chris Olave, I like Drake London.
So would you rather? Here's one thing: would you rather go instead of Christian Kirk, Garrett Wilson, and Titans D? Would you rather go Zay Jones?
Well, I think Christian Kirk. I think you got to have Christian Kirk if you have Lawrence.
Okay,
I would be okay with having both of them, but Garrett Wilson. The Jets offense just scares me. Like, I think if you want a guy who's that high, I mean, like 5,200 for a Jets wide receiver is still pretty high, in my mind, and I'm not convinced of their like chemistry at all. Is there any other receivers that you like?
Yeah, I could talk about a few. Going back to the receiver chart, if I look around real quick, I mean, Deontay Johnson has been targeted a lot. New quarterback in town, and Kenny Pickett. I think you could see maybe him have a better week than last week at 6,100. He's been getting by far the most targets on that team. So yeah, that's one thing I would say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it just like you look at last week and Zach Wilson completed half his passes. He had a 50% completion percentage, and I'm fine with this lineup. I think.
All right.
I think this is good. I think solid. I'm excited about. We have basically like a double game stack going on with Ertz and Brown, and then Texans Jags. So I am okay with that.
Yeah, so I will send that over to you, Jake. Before we end the show, how about you go over your main lineup once again? I know it's very similar to this consensus, but
yeah, my main lineup. I have Lawrence, Harris, Wilson, so the exact same. Wide receiver, Cooks, Kirk, same. But then I go up and get Cooper Kupp at 9.6. Again,
oh, you got Kupp. You did not talk about that much.
I did. I mentioned it in passing, but
all right.
I think he's a walking 30-point game, and
yeah,
but easily wouldn't surprise anyone if he gets 45. And so I just think that's so rare. And then that caused me to kind of have to go down. I went Logan Thomas at 3.2 at tight end, Chris Olave at 5.7 at wide receiver or at flex, and then the Cardinals defense at 2.1 in the defensive slot.
Yeah, for me this week, I have a lineup of Tom Brady, Damian Harris, Jeff Wilson. So same running backs as Jake, same as the consensus. A.J. Brown, Chris Godwin, Garrett Wilson, Zach Ertz, Christian Kirk. And I'm going with, why is that there? I'm going with the Lions defense. It's for some reason it said Patriots. I did not click Patriots. That would not be ideal. But anyways, that is going to do it for episode 5 of the DFS Dudes. Just a 2-man squad today. Julian will be back next week. Thank you all so much for watching. And Jake, take it away.
There are many things a man can do with his time, and this is better than those things.
See you guys.